In the land where ancient gods shaped destiny from the clouds of creation, where emperors claimed descent from the sun goddess Amaterasu herself, a warrior class arose that would not only defend a nation but define its very soul. These were the samurai, a name that still echoes through history with undiminished power, evoking images of unshakable loyalty, supreme martial skill, and an unwavering code of honor that transformed Japan's warrior aristocracy into one of history's most fascinating social classes. But to truly understand the samurai, to look beyond the gleaming swords and lacquered armor that have captured imaginations for centuries, we must journey back to a time when Japan was still finding its identity. We must understand how simple farmers became warriors, how warriors became nobles, and how nobles became the architects of one of history's most sophisticated civilizations. The seeds of warrior culture, 5th to 7th centuries. Long before the word samurai was first written in Japanese chronicles, the foundations of Japan's warrior culture were being laid in the tumultuous world of the Kofun period. In these early centuries, Japan was a patchwork of competing clans and tribal confederacies, each vying for control of the fertile plains and strategic waterways that would determine their survival. Archaeological evidence from massive tomb mounds, or kofun, reveals a society already developing sophisticated military technology. Bronze mirrors, iron weapons, and horse trappings found in these ancient graves tell us of a ruling class that combined political power with military might. The distinctive curved jewels known as magatama, found alongside weapons in these tombs, suggest that military power was already being connected to religious and political authority. The roots of what would become the samurai class lay in the fundamental changes taking place in Japanese society during the 5th and 6th centuries. As wet rice agriculture spread across the Japanese archipelago, it created new forms of social organization. The cultivation of rice required sophisticated irrigation systems and coordinated labor, leading to the emergence of local chieftains who could organize and defend these agricultural communities. The influence of China and the formation of the Japanese state, 7th to 8th centuries. The transformation of Japan's warrior class was profoundly influenced by contact with Tang dynasty China. Japanese embassies to the continent brought back not just writing systems and Buddhist teachings, but also sophisticated military technologies and organizational concepts that would reshape Japanese warfare. The Taika reforms of 645 CE marked a crucial turning point. Attempting to implement a Chinese-style centralized state, Japan's imperial court established a complex administrative system based on the Tang model. This included attempts to create a professional army under central control, similar to China's impressive military machine. However, the geographic and social realities of Japan proved resistant to complete Chinese-style centralization. The mountainous terrain and scattered nature of Japanese settlement meant that local power centers remained strong. In the provinces, regional leaders continued to maintain their own armed forces, laying the groundwork for what would become the samurai class. The weapons and armor of this transitional period reflect this blend of Chinese influence and Japanese adaptation. While early Japanese warriors adopted some elements of continental military technology, they modified these to suit local conditions. The distinctive asymmetrical Japanese bow, or yumi, emerged during this period, its unique design reflecting the requirements of mounted archery in Japan's forested terrain. The emergence of provincial warrior bands, 8th to 9th centuries. The term samurai first appears in historical records of the 8th century, but not in reference to warriors. Instead, it described armed servants of the provincial government, who helped collect taxes and maintain order in rural areas. These early samurai were as much police officers and administrative officials as they were warriors. The transformation of these armed servants into a distinct warrior class was driven by the increasing need for military power in the provinces. As the central government's authority weakened, local leaders began to maintain larger bodies of armed retainers. These warriors developed distinctive military traditions, passing fighting techniques from father to son and establishing the hereditary nature of warrior status that would become a defining feature of the samurai class. The 9th century saw the development of the first permanent military installations in provincial Japan. Unlike the massive stone castles of later eras, these were simple wooden stockades and earthen fortifications. However, they marked the beginning of a distinctively Japanese military architecture that would evolve over the centuries. The formation of warrior houses, 9th to 10th centuries. During this period, powerful warrior families began to establish themselves as distinct social entities. These warrior houses, or byuk, developed complex genealogies tracing their lineages to imperial princes or ancient deities. This process of creating elaborate family histories reflected the warrior class's growing awareness of itself as a distinct social group. The training of young warriors became increasingly sophisticated during this period. While combat skills remained paramount, warriors were also expected to master the Chinese classics, especially works on strategy and leadership. The foundations of what would later become the samurai's distinctive combination of martial prowess and cultural refinement were laid during these centuries. The daily life of these early warrior households revolved around military training, agricultural management, and local administration. Warriors were expected to maintain their own equipment, train regularly in weapons use, and be ready to mobilize at their lord's command. This created a distinctive lifestyle that set warriors apart from the farmers they protected and the nobles they served. The rise of warrior power, 10th to 12th centuries. The 10th century marked a crucial turning point in the evolution of Japan's warrior class. As the authority of the imperial court continued to decline, provincial warriors found themselves increasingly drawn into national politics. The imperial court's practice of appointing warriors as provincial governors had an unintended consequence. It created a class of military leaders with both martial skills and administrative experience. These warrior governors developed sophisticated systems for managing their territories. They created networks of allied warriors, established local courts to settle disputes, and developed complex systems of land management. The warriors were evolving from simple fighters into a new kind of aristocracy, one that combined military power with administrative skill. During this period, the first distinctively samurai cultural practices emerged. Warriors began developing elaborate ceremonies for everything from the presentation of weapons to the taking of heads in battle. These rituals helped create a unique warrior culture that set the samurai apart from both the court nobility and the common people. The development of samurai military technology. The evolution of samurai military technology during this period reflects their growing sophistication as a warrior class. The famous Oyoroi armor, weighing up to 30 kilograms, represented a masterpiece of medieval Japanese engineering. Each suit contained thousands of individual iron plates, carefully laced together with silk cords and patterns that allowed for both protection and mobility. The development of Japanese sword-making technology reached new heights during this era. Master smiths developed sophisticated techniques for folding and tempering steel, creating blades that combined incredible sharpness with remarkable durability. The distinctive curve of the Japanese sword, which would become the symbol of samurai authority, was perfected during this period. The rise of military traditions and schools. As warfare became more sophisticated, specialized schools of martial arts began to emerge. These ryūa taught not just fighting techniques, but complete systems of military knowledge, including strategy, leadership, and the philosophical principles that would later form the basis of bushido. Each school developed its own distinctive fighting style, often closely guarded as family secrets. These styles reflected different approaches to combat, from the aggressive techniques of the Kage-ryu to the more defensive methods of the Yagyu Shinkichi-ryu. The diversity of these schools ensured the continuous evolution and refinement of samurai military arts. The Genpei War, forging the samurai legend, 1180 to 1185. The Genpei War represented more than just a conflict between rival warrior clans. It was the crucible in which many of the most distinctive elements of samurai culture were forged. The struggle between the Minamoto and Taira clans demonstrated the full range of samurai military capabilities, from massive pitched battles to small-unit guerrilla warfare. The war saw significant innovations in military tactics. The Battle of Kurikara in 1183 demonstrated the importance of deception and surprise in samurai warfare. The Minamoto forces used a complex system of false signals and hidden units to lure the Taira army into a devastating ambush, showing how sophistication in military planning had become as important as individual combat skill. The naval dimension of the Genpei War, culminating in the Battle of Dan no Yura, showed how samurai had adapted their fighting techniques to maritime warfare. Warriors learned to fight on the heaving decks of ships, developing specialized weapons and tactics for naval combat. The use of archer platforms on ships and sophisticated naval formations showed the adaptability of samurai military thinking. The legend of Minamoto no Yoshitsune, the ideal samurai. The story of Minamoto no Yoshitsune represents the emergence of the ideal samurai hero. Raised in a Buddhist monastery after his father's execution, Yoshitsune's journey from obscurity to military genius came to embody many of the values that would define samurai culture: martial excellence, unwavering loyalty, and tragic destiny. Yoshitsune's military innovations transformed samurai warfare. His famous falling leaf cavalry charge at the Battle of Ichi-no-Tani, where he led mounted warriors down a near-vertical cliff face, demonstrated how individual courage and tactical brilliance could overcome seemingly impossible odds. His strategies often combined traditional samurai horsemanship with unexpected maneuvers that caught his enemies completely by surprise. The Kamakura Shogunate, the first warrior government, 1185 to 1333. The establishment of the Kamakura Shogunate marked the beginning of warrior rule in Japan. Minamoto no Yoritomo created a sophisticated administrative system that balanced central authority with local autonomy. The appointment of warrior governors, or shugo, and land stewards, or jito, created a nationwide network of samurai administrators. The development of samurai law during the Kamakura period reflected the growing sophistication of warrior society. The Gozaibai Shikimoku, promulgated in 1232, established clear legal principles for resolving disputes among warriors. This legal code emphasized practical solutions over rigid principles, reflecting the pragmatic nature of samurai governance. The influence of Zen Buddhism on samurai culture. The adoption of Zen Buddhism by the warrior class had profound implications for samurai culture. Zen's emphasis on direct experience over theoretical knowledge resonated with the samurai's practical nature. The discipline of meditation provided warriors with mental training that complemented their physical practice. Zen influence extended beyond religious practice into all aspects of samurai culture. The tea ceremony, which began as a simple monastic ritual, evolved into a complex art form that embodied key samurai values: attention to detail, awareness of the moment, and appreciation of transient beauty. The Mongol invasions, testing samurai warfare, 1274 and 1281. The Mongol invasions represented the greatest external challenge ever faced by the samurai class. Kublai Khan's armies brought weapons and tactics that the Japanese had never encountered, including explosive bombs, coordinated volley fire, and tight infantry formations that seemed impervious to traditional samurai cavalry charges. The invasions forced significant changes in samurai military thinking. The traditional emphasis on individual combat proved ineffective against Mongol tactics. Japanese warriors quickly adapted, developing new weapons and tactics suitable for fighting against disciplined infantry formations. The evolution of samurai fortifications, 13th to 16th centuries. The experience of the Mongol invasions fundamentally transformed Japanese military architecture. The simple wooden stockades of earlier eras gave way to increasingly sophisticated fortifications. Japanese castle design evolved to incorporate multiple layers of defense, including stone foundations, complex gate structures, and ingenious defensive features that would become hallmarks of Japanese castle architecture. The development of stone lifting and fitting techniques during this period represented a quantum leap in Japanese engineering capabilities. Master builders learned to cut and fit massive stones without mortar, creating walls that could withstand earthquakes and artillery fire. The distinctive curve of Japanese castle walls, designed to deflect projectiles and complicate scaling attempts, represented a uniquely Japanese solution to the challenges of fortress design. The Ashikaga shogunate and cultural refinement, 1336 to 1573. The Ashikaga period marked a crucial transformation in samurai culture. While maintaining their martial traditions, warriors became increasingly involved in the arts. The shogun Ashikaga Yoshimitsu set a new standard for warrior patronage of the arts, establishing the samurai class as cultural arbiters as well as military leaders. The development of the tea ceremony during this period perfectly exemplifies the growing sophistication of samurai culture. What began as a simple ritual evolved into a complex art form that embodied core samurai values. Every movement in the tea ceremony became laden with meaning, from the arrangement of utensils to the precise angle of the tea bowl when presented. Samurai of this era were expected to master multiple art forms. The composition of poetry, particularly the brief but emotionally charged form of death poems, jisei, became an essential samurai accomplishment. Warriors learned to appreciate the subtle beauty of flower arrangement, ikebana, and the philosophical implications of landscape gardening. The development of martial arts schools. The period of relative peace under the Ashikaga shogunate allowed for the systematic development of martial arts. Different schools, ryua, emerged, each with its distinctive philosophical approach to combat. The Kage-ryu emphasized aggressive techniques based on the principle of overwhelming force, while the Yagyu Shinkichi-ryu developed more subtle methods focusing on timing and psychology. Each school developed complex systems of kata, predetermined sequences of movements that encoded their fighting principles. These kata served not just as training methods but as means of preserving and transmitting each school's unique tactical insights. The practice of kata became a form of moving meditation, combining physical technique with philosophical understanding. The Sengoku period, warfare transformed, 1467 to 1615. The Sengoku period represented both the apex of samurai warfare and its transformation. The introduction of firearms and new tactical concepts revolutionized Japanese military practice. Armies grew from small bands of mounted warriors to massive formations including tens of thousands of troops from multiple social classes. The adoption of firearms fundamentally changed samurai warfare. The arquebus, known in Japan as the tanegashima, proved capable of penetrating even the finest samurai armor. This led to significant changes in military organization, with specialized arquebus units requiring extensive training and standardized equipment. Siege warfare reached new levels of sophistication during this period. The introduction of firearms led to innovations in castle design, including specialized gun ports and complex defensive layouts. Samurai commanders developed sophisticated techniques for both conducting and resisting sieges, including the use of countermines and complex systems of provisional fortifications. The Three Unifiers, reshaping Japan. Oda Nobunaga revolutionized Japanese warfare through his systematic adoption of firearms and new tactical concepts. His victory at Nagashino in 1575, where massed arquebus fire devastated traditional samurai cavalry, marked a turning point in Japanese military history. Nobunaga's willingness to promote talented subordinates regardless of their social status challenged traditional samurai hierarchies. Toyotomi Hideyoshi's rise from peasant origins to supreme ruler of Japan demonstrated both the opportunities and limitations of the late Sengoku period. His sword hunt, Katanagari, of 1588, which disarmed the peasantry, and his rigid class separation edicts helped create the social structure that would define the Edo period. Tokugawa Ieyasu's establishment of a lasting peace required both military prowess and political genius. His system of alternate attendants, Sankin Kotai, requiring daimyo to maintain residences in Edo, transformed Japan's political geography and created new forms of samurai administration. The transformation of warfare, technology and tactics. The warfare of the Sengoku period required new forms of military organization. Armies developed sophisticated systems of unit flags and drums for battlefield communication. Commanders learned to coordinate different types of troops, cavalry, infantry, arquebusiers, and artillery, in complex combined arms tactics. The massive armies of this period required equally massive support systems. Samurai commanders developed sophisticated methods for supplying their troops, building networks of castles and fortified supply depots. The ability to maintain large armies in the field for extended periods became as important as tactical skill in battle. The evolution of castle design. Japanese castle design reached its peak during the Sengoku period. Castles became massive complexes incorporating multiple rings of defense, with each element carefully designed to funnel attackers into killing zones. Innovations like the stone-dropping platforms, ishiotoshi, and creative use of dead angles in defensive design showed the sophistication of Japanese military architecture. The internal organization of Japanese castles reflected both military necessity and social hierarchy. Different levels of the castle were assigned to warriors of different rank, creating a physical representation of the samurai social order. The development of specialized buildings for different military and administrative functions showed how castles had evolved from simple fortresses into sophisticated administrative centers. The Edo period, peace transforms the warrior class, 1615 to 1868. The establishment of the Tokugawa shogunate marked the beginning of an unprecedented era of peace that would last for over 2 centuries. This peace presented the samurai class with an existential challenge: how to maintain their warrior identity in an age without war. The answer would transform them from warriors into one of history's most remarkable administrative classes. The samurai evolved into a sophisticated bureaucratic class, managing everything from tax collection to education and civil administration. In castle towns across Japan, samurai served as administrators, magistrates, and teachers. Their training now emphasized literacy and administrative skill alongside martial arts. This transformation was so complete that by the mid-Edo period, many samurai had never drawn their swords in actual combat. The educational system developed by the samurai class during the Edo period was remarkably sophisticated. Domain schools, Hanko, provided systematic education in Chinese classics, mathematics, history, and martial arts. These schools helped create one of the world's most literate societies, with education extending far beyond the samurai class itself. The development of Edo period martial arts. Without actual warfare, martial arts evolved into complex systems combining practical techniques with philosophical and spiritual elements. The practice of swordsmanship, kenjutsu, transformed into kendo, emphasizing personal development alongside technical skill. Similar transformations occurred in archery, kyujitsu to kyudo, and other martial arts. The emphasis shifted from practical combat effectiveness to perfect form and spiritual development. Masters began writing detailed theoretical treatises exploring the philosophical implications of martial arts practice. Works like Miyamoto Musashi's The Book of Five Rings and Yagyu Munenori's The Life-Giving Sword showed how martial arts had become vehicles for profound philosophical investigation. Economic challenges and social transformation. The long peace of the Edo period created significant economic challenges for the samurai class. Living on fixed stipends while the merchant class grew increasingly wealthy, many samurai struggled to maintain their standard of living. This economic pressure led to significant social changes, with some samurai engaging in side businesses or seeking additional education to supplement their income. The rise of the merchant class created complex social tensions. While merchants were technically at the bottom of the social hierarchy, their economic power often exceeded that of their samurai superiors. This led to interesting cultural exchanges, with merchants adopting samurai cultural practices while samurai sometimes relied on merchant financing. The codification of bushido. During the Edo period, scholars began systematically codifying samurai values into what became known as bushido, the way of the warrior. Works like Yamaga Soko's writings and later Naito Banatsu's Bushido, the Soul of Japan, attempted to articulate the essential principles of samurai ethics. The codified Bushido emphasized 7 core virtues: righteousness, gi, courage, yu, benevolence, jin, respect, rei, honesty, makoto, honor, meo, and loyalty, chugi. These principles were seen as the distillation of centuries of samurai experience and wisdom, transformed into a comprehensive ethical system. The Final Crisis, Confronting Modernity, 1853 to 1868. The arrival of Commodore Perry's American fleet in 1853 triggered a crisis that would ultimately lead to the end of samurai rule. The evident technological superiority of Western powers forced Japan to confront the limitations of its isolated, feudal system. The samurai class split over how to respond to this challenge. Some advocated rapid modernization, while others called for expelling the foreigners and maintaining traditional ways. This debate eventually erupted into civil war, with modernizing forces confronting traditionalist samurai in a conflict that would determine Japan's future. The Meiji Restoration and the end of the samurai class, 1868 to 1877. The Meiji Restoration of 1868 marked the formal end of samurai rule in Japan. The new government abolished the samurai class privileges, including their right to wear swords in public and their hereditary stipends. Many former samurai found new roles in business, education, or the modern military, while others struggled to adapt. Some samurai resisted these changes, leading to a series of rebellions culminating in the Satsuma Rebellion of 1877. Led by Seigo Takamori, later dubbed the Last Samurai, this final stand of traditional samurai warfare against modern military forces marked the definitive end of the samurai era. The modern legacy of the samurai. Though the samurai class is gone, their influence continues to shape Japanese society in profound ways. The emphasis on loyalty, self-discipline, and dedication to duty remains strong in Japanese corporate culture. Many modern Japanese companies explicitly draw on samurai traditions in their management philosophy. Traditional samurai arts survive in modern forms, practiced around the world. Kendo, Kyudo, and other martial ways preserve not just the techniques but also the philosophical and spiritual elements of samurai culture. These arts continue to attract practitioners seeking to understand the deeper principles of the samurai way. Global cultural impact. The samurai have become powerful cultural icons, inspiring artists, filmmakers, and writers worldwide. From Akira Kurosawa's classic films to modern anime and video games, samurai themes resonate with audiences everywhere, speaking to universal human values of honor, courage, and self-improvement. Conclusion. The story of the samurai represents one of history's most remarkable examples of how a warrior class can transcend its martial origins to become the architects of a sophisticated civilization. Their journey from provincial warriors to cultured administrators, and their ultimate transformation into a global cultural symbol, offers profound lessons about the relationship between martial virtues and civil society. In our modern world, Where traditional values often seem at odds with technological progress, the samurai example shows how martial virtues can be transformed to serve the causes of peace and civilization. Their legacy teaches us that true strength lies not just in military power, but in the balance of force and wisdom, tradition and innovation. If you found this exploration of samurai history enlightening, please support the Forgotten Hourglass by liking, subscribing, and sharing this video. Join our community of history enthusiasts and help us keep these fascinating stories alive for future generations.